This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. Here's not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Friday, 31 July, last day of July in the year of our Lord 2026. Think about how this year has flown by. Rosemary Jenks is with us. Rosemary, we're going to have momentarily. In fact, let's cut to the full thing. We got Marine One, there we go, coming into Camp David. There's going to be a off-site cabinet meeting. There's Marine One right there in the mountains of Maryland, right up near, en route to the Gettysburg battlefield. Gettysburg is just a few miles inside of Pennsylvania. In fact, it's that mountain range that the Confederate Army was on one side, and General Meade, after Hooker got fired, and General Meade relieved Hooker. General Hooker, he was on the other side, and eventually they all converged at the crossroads town of Gettysburg, which is not that far up the road from Camp David. The President of the United States, why is the President there? The President is having an off-site cabinet meeting. I think there's some pretty serious issues they're going to address. Obviously going to talk about the midterms. But I can tell you, having seen focus groups and the polling and the internal polling, if you take action on the core principles of President Trump and what he ran on for the sweeping victory 18 months ago in 2024, we'll win in a landslide. Why are we having a problem in some of these states with these Senate candidates? Because the grassroots don't believe them, and they see Thune. You want to get enthusiasm back in the Senate. You want to hold the Senate. I've got a solution on how you hold the Senate. Have a throwdown right now with John Thune for a leadership fight and get him removed and get somebody in there that's going to take some action on Save America and other policies of America First. And shazam, all of a sudden people are enthusiastic. If you don't do that, you're going to lose the Senate. People say, you can't say that, Steve. You shouldn't say it. Well, I'm just trying to give you a reality check. Look at the polling that's come over the last couple of days. Who called that shot? Stephen K. Bannon. Told you this was going to happen. You're losing in Ohio. You're getting blown out in Georgia. You're getting blown out in North Carolina. Now, it turns out that the situation in Michigan with the radical Islamist that looks like he's going to win by 20 points. Hey, you never know. They may give up. They may not take Michigan. They may lose a seat in Michigan. Who knows what's going to happen in Maine? So there's a lot going on. If they lose Michigan, very tough for them. But if you want to get back, if you want to have sweeping victories and get them all in, hold Alaska, hold Iowa. Iowa's in trouble. Ohio's in big trouble. Got to be blunt. Vivek is a terrible candidate to have at the top of the ticket. He's dragging down the Senate candidate. I think Vivek's down by 5-6 points and will lose by more if he continues on with what he's saying on the campaign trail. Just saying. Just saying. So the President of the United States is going to come out momentarily. So, Rosemary Jenks, if you were up there today and able to brief the President and able to brief the Cabinet, what is the Rosemary Jenks action plan that Americans overwhelmingly supported President Trump and still support? There's the Commander-in-Chief right there. Coming down, it's a few minute flight from Washington, from the White House, and the president, I think, is going to be leaving. He's going to spend most of the day, but I think he's going to leave for Bedminster tonight. He'll be at Bedminster over the weekend and then back to D.C. on Sunday. Rosemary Jenks, if you were actually invited to this off-site kind of strategy session, let's leave the war aside for a second, but on the main thing, which is the invasion of our country and the expelling of the invaders in our country, what recommendations would you have to the President and the Cabinet of, one, doing the right thing of what the American people think, and thereby by doing it, pull together the coalition like in 2024 and lead to a sweeping victory in November, ma'am?
Number one, mass deportations. You got to ramp up those mass deportations, and that means worksite enforcement. Forget all this nonsense about protecting farmers and hotel owners and all the Chamber of Commerce Republicans. Forget that. No talk of amnesty, mass deportations, end OPT. That needs to be ended now because the young people in America are desperate for hope.
Okay, but hang on. Slow down. Take a deep breath. I want to make sure people understand the categories. Let's stick with the illegal aliens first. Then we're going to get to the phony. We're going to get to the phony legal immigration, which OPT is. Let's just go back to the situation with the illegal aliens, like TPS in Ohio right now. Why did DHS, why did Mullins go through the trigger date, which I think was a couple of days ago, and Mike DeWine sitting there, Governor DeWine saying, they're so amazing. These Haitians have actually built Ohio. They've been incredible. They've built Ohio, and they're doing an amazing job, and we shouldn't send one of them home. What's going on with TPS right now, and what would you advise the president and Markwayne Mullin to do?
Well, first of all, the deadlines for a lot of the TPS countries were extended because the lower courts refused to get in line with the Supreme Court decision that said that the administration has the power to end them. So they kept delaying the expiration of the work permits and the TPS status. That is now over. Basically, DHS just said, okay, well, the Supreme Court has said it's done. So we're going to go with the Supreme Court and forget about the district courts, the lower courts. So that should be happening. The work permits that they were given have officially expired, which means they are no longer employable. But the only way that that has any impact is if ICE goes into those communities and starts deporting them. If they haven't left on their own, which the vast majority have not, they need to be rounded up and deported. It's as simple as that. And the fact is that most of the Haitians, for example, who came under TPS under the Biden years, most of them were resettled in third countries. They were in Central and South America. They were not living in Haiti. So they have absolutely no excuse to not leave the country. If they want to go back to the third countries they were living in, they should leave on their own. Otherwise, they need to be deported. Full stop. You know, we have plenty of people in this country.
Okay, I got it. Why is DHS the trigger or the date was 2 nights ago at midnight, I think. What are we doing now? What are you hearing? Why is Mullin, who went on Jake Tapper the first day that the Supreme Court gave the decision, and he's advising them to file for permanent settlement? Is he actually for the remaining? Like Mike DeWine came on and gave a 10-minute interview saying that essentially the Haitians built Ohio, right? Not Buckeyes, not the Ohioans. It was really the Haitians that built Ohio, and that's what we have to have gratitude for them to allow them to stay in the countries, because Ohio can't function without the Haitians. Why is DHS not doing the fundamentals? And if you had Mullin there and the president and you're at Camp David, what are you telling the president in front of Mullins?
Well, I mean, again, mass deportations. We have got to be visibly deporting these people. That doesn't mean that we need to have, armed ICE officers in the middle of riots in downtown. It means that we need to be doing worksite enforcement. We need to go to the places where we know large numbers of these aliens are, round them up and remove them. Mike DeWine has been terrible on immigration since his days in the Senate decades ago. He has never been good on this issue. Ignore him. These are the Chamber of Commerce Republicans who need to just, retire and go away. We voted for mass deportations. We want every single illegal alien who came in to our country illegally or who overstayed a visa to be deported, regardless of whether they have committed a separate crime. So that is just absolutely a must. And it's not just Secretary Mullin who is, an issue on this issue in the cabinet. It's also Secretary of Agriculture. It's also the Secretary of Commerce. DHS is now coming out with a rule on OPT that is going to do exactly the same thing as the H-1B rule and just charge a fee.
But,
That's not enough.
Hang on. Let's. I want to pivot before I pivot to the legal immigration. Agriculture and commerce are fighting for keeping the illegal aliens here because the business community and the agriculture community want cheaper illegal alien labor. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And in fact, Secretary Rollins was bragging last week that she has managed to decrease the wages of agricultural workers by 40%. That's a disgusting thing to brag about.
Because they were making so much. The agricultural workers are so overpaid. You know they're overpaid. Of course they need a 40%. The hedge fund guys making more money than ever. The private equity guys making more money than ever. Big ag's making more money than ever. Of course you need to cut the wages by 40%. I understand it's tough for family farmers. It is. With fertilizer prices up, all this fighting with China. I got it. It's tough, but 40% cuts because the laborers are making too much money. Are there, for the counter argument, are there enough programs out there that you can work that we can get American citizens enough to support these? They keep saying, hey, American citizens won't do these jobs. They're too lazy. They're too feckless. They're too tied up on welfare. What is your response about the issue they say they don't have the workers?
It's ridiculous. It's 2026, Steve. We have machines that will harvest every crop. We have machines that will milk cows. We have machines that will do all of this. And, you know, if Americans don't want to go out in the field and bend over and pick the green beans, you know what they will do? They'll run the machines that can do that. Instead of importing a serf class to pick our food, we should mechanize. Americans are more than capable of running those machines and, you know, driving the trucks and all of the other jobs that are involved in getting produce from the field to the grocery store. At a decent wage.
Now, before I go back to the legal immigration scam, just give me your observations about, because this crisis that Peter Schweitzer brought up is that our enemies are using the illegal alien, the invasion, and legal to destroy the country. Birthright tourism, Peter says, there's 1.5 Manchurian candidates or Manchurian voters in mainland China right now because of birthright citizenship, birthright tourism. What do you think about what you just heard from Brian Harrison in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. States should stop issuing birth certificates to the children of illegal aliens and temporary visitors. There's going to be lawsuits that follow. Fine. Let's get it through the courts again. You know, this was not a monolithic decision in the Supreme Court. It wasn't 9-0. It was essentially 5-4. So if we can get these cases run through again, and I mean, again, we need Congress to act on this. And I know that's, you know, a huge hurdle because Congress has shown that it's essentially useless for the most part. But we need Congress to take a stand on birthright citizenship. We need them to define subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the statute. We need them to take specific steps. For example, with these Chinese who are coming over as birth tourists, having babies, and then taking the babies back to China until they're 18, we can institute a residency requirement. So if you are born in the United States, you become a citizen. But if you don't reside here for a certain period of time before you reach the age of 18, you lose your citizenship. Congress can do that. Congress can outlaw birth tourism. Congress can prevent accompanying family members of H-1Bs and L-1s and all the other visa categories, so they're not here to have babies.
We're gonna shift now to the scam of legal immigration, quote unquote. It's destroying a generation of STEM workers. It's destroying a generation of American citizens. This is a complete scam. It's just big tech. It's Elon Musk. It's an entire crowd. You know, Elon's going to put a lot of money. Wants to put a lot of money in because he wants bailouts. He wants a bailout on his financial crimes around SpaceX. And yes, they are crimes. If he had an SEC ready to hammer, or Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley that had any stones, the perspective of never this phony stock would have never been issued. Short commercial break. Rosemary Jenks on the other side.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. Rosemary's going to hold for a second. I'm going to give her back in a moment. We're going to talk about my favorite topic, H-1Bs, and the scam of the foreign students at the OPT situation where they come in underwritten by taxpayers to take jobs from young Americans, particularly folks in the STEM area. The kids that did everything right the entire time since they've been in, I don't know, first grade. Not like me who kind of shined it all on, right? No, these are the kids that every day had their homework, did everything right. They did everything right. They did everything the system told them what you're supposed to do. They did it all correctly, only to be stiffed by their own government at the end. We're going to get to that in a moment. Talking about being stiff, Colby, and Mike Davis is going to join us in a second on this Cornyn situation and what's happening. The president, as I told you, just at Camp David, just arrived on Marine One. They're going to have a all-day cabinet offsite, what they call it, offsite meeting up at Camp David. They got a three big topics I think they'll talk about. We'll get to that momentarily. Viceroy is going to join us momentarily. Colby, I just want to make sure people understand something because, as you know, I'm an absolute moron and idiot when it comes, it's too complicated. And that's why I always call Colby as soon as something happens. There was an article the other day, and it's not getting enough attention. Talk to me about this and how is it going to impact our audience and what should people do about it, sir?
Thanks, Steve. There was big news 2 days ago from the government. CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, announced that the administration will be ending a Part D, which is the prescription plan side of Medicare, a Part D subsidy a year early. So the government is taking a pretty bold move. And frankly, this, as far as I understand, this was largely Dr. Oz's decision. It's a very bold move going into the midterms to pull a subsidy back, but it's actually quite responsible and probably the right move for the government. And what it will do is it will probably increase the Part D prescription drug premiums, but the posse can protect that increase.
Slow down. Why is it responsible for Dr. Oz to do this? Walk me through the responsibility part, then we can walk through the impact on the basic taxpayer. Why is it responsible?
The government, and this was implemented by the Biden administration, the subsidy in the first place. The government is essentially lining the pockets of insurance carriers. It's subsidizing insurance carriers directly to arbitrarily and artificially keep prescription drug premium prices lower. But a lot of that excess cost is actually just a market inefficiency in the system. So when the government stops lining the pockets of the insurance carriers, there are ways for consumers to protect themselves by switching to a better Part D plan, a better Medicare Part D plan. So it's responsible for the government not to be spending unnecessary money lining the pockets of carriers.
But you're saying, obviously, the optics of it, the politics of it, it's tough to pull a subsidy away in the last 90 days in a run-up. Yeah. Normally, people have a tendency to make a nasty commercial about that and not make you look good. So for the practicality, let's leave the politics aside for a second and the economics. Just for the practicality of the War Room posse, how should they handle this? What should they do?
Yep, they will likely see an increase in their Part D prescription premiums and maybe copays. And so the way to protect yourselves from that increase is to make sure that you shop your Part D plan to look for a better plan. And you can do that by calling Chapter 845 War Room, which is the special number for the War Room posse. And we will make sure that you get a Part D plan and a broad Medicare package that is right for you, that lowers your costs. One other point I want to make is that a lot of the insurance carriers and other more unscrupulous Medicare brokers will likely try to switch people from a Medicare supplement plan to a Medicare Advantage plan, and using this Part D subsidy pullback as sort of an excuse to do so. That is, for most people, a very bad decision. They should not switch from Medicare supplement to Medicare Advantage. Again, it's a personal choice. There are some people for whom that's the right decision, but broadly, it's really important to make sure that is a deliberate decision before going in that direction, which is why we encourage everyone to call us at 845 War Room. We can give you unbiased guidance to make sure that you have the right plan and protect yourselves from increased premiums.
What do people need to bring when they call 845 War Room? what should they have gotten together before you could? First off, you can call at all and they'll tell you. But if you want to be a more efficient use of your time, what should they assemble before they call?
Have a list of your prescriptions and a list of your doctors, and that's it. Just what prescriptions do you take and what doctors do you see? And from that, we can ask a few additional questions on the call, but it's a very simple conversation. We just like to get to know you more and make sure that we're giving you the best guidance we can.
845 War Room. Do it today because this stuff is enormously complicated, but the power of the data company that is Chapters, they'll lay it all out for you. Like, you make the decisions, but they'll give you the range of options that you need to think about. Colby, thank you very much. Thank you for coming on here and warning us about this.
Thank you, Steve.
Chapter 845 War Room. Saved over the War Room Posse over $1 million right now, but most importantly, gotten you into the plans that fit you, optimum plans. Mike Davis, the situation with Cornyn, Todd Blanche is in kind of hang fire right now. That we can't go forward with this, right? We got to get Todd confirmed. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, and it's down to the wire. Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley is ready to notice the committee vote today for Tuesday, and then we can get Todd Blanche confirmed as the next Attorney General of the United States Saturday, probably, before the Senate runs to their August recess. And I think the holdup is that Senators Cornyn in Texas and Tillis in North Carolina, both of whom are retiring, are asking for concessions on an IRS settlement fund for weaponization. The Justice Department, President Trump's personal attorney, and these senators are working together. Grassley has been hugely helpful in this process. He has been Todd Blanche's biggest champion and advocate. Grassley really wants to get this done, but we don't have the votes right now on the Senate Judiciary Committee until Tillis and Cornyn get the resolution they want from President Trump and his personal attorney. So that's where we are.
So a lot of pressure was put, when we heard this, a lot of pressure was put from the War Room Posse. You came on either through Article 3 Project or Bill Blaster or a combination. There's a lot of pressure put on. And I do notice, I just want to note, John Thune has not taken the Viceroy's recommendation of canceling. We're going on recess. Is that correct? Is that correct, Viceroy?
The August recess is about as certain as the sun rising in the morning in the Senate. It is the Senate is the most elite nursing home on the planet, and they do not work past 2:00 on Thursdays generally, and they do not work through August recess. So
do we need to continue the forcing function of the War Room Posse making the calls, or should we just, hey, it's being worked out and something's going to take place here? Or because yesterday they were leaking, they were leaking that, hey, they're going to pull the Todd Blanche confirmation process and just say, screw it, we'll get to it after the midterms. So your assessment of state of play and your recommendation, Viceroy, because the posse's up on the ramparts, they're ready to roll. We're just looking for guidance here.
This is going to be probably the first time you hear this. I want to be the voice of reason here. I want the cooler heads to prevail here on all sides. I want Todd Blanche to get confirmed as the next Attorney General of the United States. There is a definite path if both sides can come together. They are 99% of the way there. Both sides just come together and get this resolved so Todd Blanche can get confirmed and continue to bring much needed reforms to the Justice Department. So the Justice Department goes back to prosecuting real criminals instead of being weaponized by Joe Biden and Barack Obama and future Democrats against their political enemies like Trump, his top aides, his allies, parents, Christians. Todd Blanche has done this as the Deputy Attorney General, the number 2 for the last 16 months. He has done this as the acting Attorney General for the last several months. No one is more qualified to do this job. Todd Blanche is the man for the moment. He is so close to getting confirmed, and Cooler heads need to prevail on all sides, and we need to get Todd Blanche confirmed. There's a lot more work to do, and Todd Blanche is going to get it done.
Okay. We just got to warn you, the president may address and answer, actually may even answer some questions. So the president's going to talk from Camp David, I think in about 15 minutes or so. So just a warning, we're going to go to that right away and cut into, we've still got Mike Davis and Rosemary Jenks to get through, and we're going to get through all of it. Real quickly, just to Article 3, all that, but I'll say this before you go, Mike. If they go on recess, you saw the polling came out yesterday. I've been warning about this. The polling is horrific. I think we're down at 7 of the 8. It's just horrific in the Senate. If they go on recess and Save America's not done, you're going to lose. You're going to lose the Senate unless a miracle is pulled out in Michigan with this radical Islamist that may win the primary there. But your thoughts on that before you bounce, sir?
There's no excuse for the Senate not passing the Save America Act. It has the support, again, of over 80% of Americans, a supermajority of Democrats, a supermajority of minorities, a supermajority of Black Americans who Democrats pretend can't get a voter ID like everyone else, when in reality, we know the Democrats want illegal aliens to illegally vote. There's no excuse for the Senate to not get that done. The Senate needs to get that to President Trump's desk. And again, this is where the War Room Posse is putting pressure on them and moving them, and they've done a fantastic job on this. Go to article3project.org, article number 3project.org. The two most crucial action items today. Take action. Number 1, light up both of your home state senators, Democrat and Republican. Tell them to confirm Todd Blanche as the next Attorney General of the United States. Number 2, tell the Senate to pass the Save America Act, get it to President Trump's desk. Let's stop illegal aliens from illegally voting in our elections.
Mike Davis, thank you so much. I'll talk to you after the show. We're going to go to Camp David probably in the next segment.
But it was not, I guess the last visit was with Eisenhower, where they allowed you onto the actual campus. And it's a long time ago, but never into this room. I want to thank all of you for being here. And again, this is a cabinet meeting. It's open. We have open cabinet meetings. And I think it works out very well. Everybody can answer the question. We'll let you talk about certain things we can't answer because they're ongoing and very important. But this is one of the most talented teams ever to serve the United States and in the United States government. This is a talented group of people. Let's see, I'll go one after another. Yeah, it's a couple of steps, but it's okay. It's an amazing group, and America is safer and stronger and far more successful than it was 2 years ago, and I think, frankly, that it ever was. I don't think it's ever been anything like this. We're building more factories, plants in this country than we've ever built before. And we're going to be we'll be leaving this position. We're going to leave this country in very, very good shape. Secure in history. Rampant crime, men and women, transgender mutilization of your children, and chaos and bedlam all over the world. Other than that, they did quite a good job. In less than 18 months, we've turned around 4 years of disaster. We now have the strongest border in American history. We went from the worst border, I believe, of any country in history. 25 million people came through in 4 years. And these are people that, in many cases, you don't want. They were murderers, they were drug dealers, they were people that you do not want. But now we have the strongest border in American history, and for the last 15 months, the report just came out again, we've had no people coming in through our southern border, 0. And it's almost hard to say, because you'd say, is that even possible? They had 25 million people came in. We have no people coming in illegally through our southern border. And that's in history, so think of that 0, a big, beautiful 0. The murder rate saw its single largest drop ever recorded to the lowest in 125 years. That goes back to, think of it, it goes back to 1900. Lowest murder rate in the history of our country. So that's something. Today, I just want to mention that we heard in Minnesota there was a cyber attack, and they blame it on Iran. I don't think so. I blame it on Minnesota because they're grossly incompetent. There was a cyber attack of 30 water plants, and I would blame it on Minnesota and the governor, the corrupt governor of Minnesota. They like to say, oh, it's Iran. Iran should be so lucky. Iran's got bigger problems than worrying about Minnesota. This month it was announced that inflation is dropping at the fastest rate in more than 6 years. Walmart, Sam's Club, Giant Eagle, and others are slashing prices by hundreds of grocery stores, and all of the stores, I mean, throughout the country, they're slashing prices, something that you haven't seen for a long time since my last administration. The stock market has set 73 all-time record highs since the election. That means all-time record highs, 73 days out of a very short period of time. And the typical 401k is up by more than $30,000. And when you think of that, if you add another $1,000 to it, it will be, we set the record in the last administration, a record still standing. This administration is going to blow my last administration away. When the factories that we're building at record, and we're not building them, all over the world they're building. They're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Germany with the cars. They're coming from Germany. They're coming from Japan, South Korea, Canada, Mexico. From all over the world, they're building auto plants here because otherwise they have to pay tariffs. The tariffs have made our country rich and successful. And all of this, I mean, I'd like to say it was the election. On November 5th, it was the election, and that's fine. But without the election, you wouldn't have what I've done economically. So we have the most successful environment that we've ever had. There's never been anything like it from the standpoint of investment into our country. It's 5 to 6 times higher than anybody has ever seen, than any other country, not just us, has ever had. On July 4th, we launched Trump accounts, a key provision of our great, big, beautiful bill. And these tax-free investment savings accounts have already been activated by over 7 million children. These are investments made in our future, which is our children. Our children are the most important aspect of our future, with more being added each day. So it's a tremendous hit, over 7 million, and really, it really just got going, I would say, Scott, about 2 weeks ago when it was, we got the final approvals. And we have over 7 million. Actually, there's never been anything quite like that. But millions of accounts are pre-funded with $1,000 from the U.S. Treasury or generous gifts from private donors like Michael and Susan Dell and others who have given billions of dollars, billions. People are putting up hundreds of millions and billions of dollars into it and buying really a great future for children. When they turn 18 or when they turn 21, instead of having no hope, no future, they will end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars and maybe even more than that. So it's going to be something to see. With modest additional contributions, they'll grow by numbers that it could be over $200,000. We're looking at the timeline. I wish we had an economy like we have now with the stock markets going up, but they will benefit by our country being successful. And we're going to give every child a head start on the American dream. So go to trumpaccounts.gov. They're really something. The whole world's talking about it, and it's far ahead of schedule. Nobody thought it would be as successful as it's been, but it should be. It should be. And we start them off with $1,000, and this was part of the great, big, beautiful bill. With my most favored nation policy, you could say this is even a bigger thing, if that's possible. On drug prices, we're achieving record discounts on prescription drugs. The prescription drugs were going through the roof for many years, and now we're getting record discounts with price differences of 300, 400, 500, 600%. Nobody's ever heard of a thing like that. And what this is all about is that we had the highest prices anywhere in the world by far. Most expensive drugs, prescription drugs, and others. The highest in the world. The whole world was laughing at us. We paid for the rest of the world. We subsidized the whole world. And I said, we're not going to do that. And I started it in the first administration. I took it up. Obviously, Biden wasn't able to do anything about it because you had to get the consent of the drug companies, and you had to get the consent. More difficult would be the consent of other nations. The other nations had to agree, but they were paying a fraction, sometimes 10%, 20%, 40%, 70% less. So I had to call them and I had to get them on, and I said, if you don't do it, we're going to have to charge you tariffs. And they all said no at first, very politely said, sir, we can't do that. We're not going to double our prices. They had to double their prices, and in some cases triple their price, and we would come down. So a pill that sold for $10 in Germany would sell for $130 in New York. Same pill from the same company, the same factory, the same plant, same laboratory, from $10, and we pay $130. I say, no. Now the world is a bigger place, so it's not as bad as it sounds for them. So they went up to 20, and we came down to 20. So we now have the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world. We're tied with the lowest, but we're basically its favored nation. So we have the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world from the highest drug prices anywhere in the world. Now, what that does for your health care, I mean, I see these fake polls where the Democrats have wonderful numbers on this stuff, and they are horrible what they've done. Obamacare is a total disaster. It's a costly wreck. It's unaffordable. We call it the Unaffordable Care Act. It's a disgrace. They never even thought of being able to do something like this. They didn't even try. They didn't even try. So I got the drug companies first, and then I got the countries. And the drug companies agreed because they knew the countries wouldn't agree. And when I called Germany, France, when I called the UK, when I called all of these countries, I said, you got to do it. It's unfair. We're paying 10 times more than you're paying for the same drug. You can't do this. And they said, well, we're not going to do that because we're going to have to double our price in order to make you happy. I said, no, maybe you're going to have to triple your price. They said, well, we can't do it. I said, that's all right. If you can't do it, then I can't do something also. And I'm going to charge you very substantial tariffs, which are far more than we're talking about. And they all said, we'd love to do it. We'd love to do it. It would be a great honor to do it. So nobody else would do this. This would have never happened. So your drug prices have gone down by numbers not even thinkable. My first term, I had the privilege of having lower drug prices from the beginning of the year till the end for the first time in 28 years, you remember. And I called a news conference to announce it. So the year had ended, and I was turned out 1/8 of a percent, 1/8 of a percent, little tiny this much. It went down that much during 1 year. First time in 28 years it went down. It was always like this, just up, more expensive. And I called a news conference. I was so proud of myself, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, the first time in 28 years drug prices have gone down from January till the end of December. And I want to just congratulate everybody for being a part of this wonderful experiment. And 1/8 of a point now, we're talking about 400, 500, 600% coming down. We pay the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world from the highest. So, and I'll say it again and again because the press doesn't want to report it, the fake news doesn't want to report it. They don't want to talk about it. What that does for healthcare, Bobby, is unbelievable because medicine's a big part of healthcare. So I wish that people would understand that, and I hope they're going to vote for us in the midterms because you'll see some stuff that will be horrible because they can blow it very fast if they don't know what they're doing. So your drug prices are great. I saw Spain yesterday, and I watched the catastrophe that took place. It looks like an invasion of a country by hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected, except worse. Much bigger, much easier to get into, despite the fact that we have built thousands of miles of wall, which I said we were going to do. But we didn't have that, forget it. But we have the safest border in the world. If we're not in office, our country will be invaded at levels that made Spain look small time. And when I watched it, I said, boy, I'm going to say it because I knew you were going to be at Camp David. And I say, that's going to be a talking point for the midterms. Because when you look at what happened to Spain, they don't know what to do. And it's happening again today. They're coming in by the tens of thousands. They're just invading the country. And what that is weak law, bad management, but very liberal law. They passed a couple of laws, and people read. People are smart. They read from other countries. and they swam that 3-mile swim, or however they got in, but nobody's seen anything like it. That will look good compared to what's going to happen to the United States. The biggest thing, the worst thing that Biden did is allowing 25 million people into our country, because many of those people are criminals. They're murderers, a lot of murder, 11,888. A lot of them are gone now, we got them out. But they allowed people to come into this country that you can't allow to come into a country. We're also making an unprecedented investment in the United States Armed Forces, where we're doing great. And we rebuilt the armed forces. We rebuilt our military in my first term, but we are doing great with our military. They spent a lot of money in our military. They gave away $300 billion worth of ammo and everything else in Biden's term, but we're building it up fast, and we just have a great military. That's all there is to it. But we rebuilt it in my first term, and we're using it in my second term with Venezuela and other places, and Iran now. Iran is doing very poorly, just in case you read incorrect stories. They're doing very, very poorly. They're having a hard time. They've been very dishonest. They've been very dishonorable to deal with, but that makes no difference. They're doing very, very poorly. We're also making that investment and looking forward to getting $1.5 trillion next year. People see now how important it is. We want to keep a safe country. We have to keep a safe country. And the good news is all of that equipment is made in the USA. So we're making it here. It's jobs. And each one of our defense groups are building literally at least 4 new massive plants as we speak, because we want them to move faster. We have the best equipment in the world, but we want them to move faster. We don't want to wait a year or a year and a half. We want to wait a week, maybe. So that's happening, and I think the results are very good. They're building at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And we've had tremendous success, and our military was just proud of it. Again, Venezuela was a one-day war, and we have a great relationship with Venezuela. We're working with partners with Venezuela now, taking out tens of millions of barrels of oil, and going to Houston, going to Alaska, going to Louisiana, going to different places for refineries, and it's been very much amazing. The administration has done more in 18 months than most administrations have done in 8 years if you had a 2-termer. We've done more in 18 months than anyone's ever seen before. Nobody's ever seen. This is the golden age of America. And we have a war that's going on. I guess you call it a war. Maybe I call it a military operation. They have no Navy. It's been obliterated. Their Air Force has been obliterated. They have no planes. Their missiles have been largely, they have some left. They have some, but they have far fewer than they had 4 or 5 months ago. Their manufacturing capacity is almost gone. The drone capacity is almost gone. There are very few, but they have some. If they have one, that's too many as far as I'm concerned. But we've done an amazing job with Venezuela. We've done an amazing job here. We're in there for 5 months. You know, I know what people like to say, because we did a much bigger job, much more important job than we originally anticipated. So we're in there for 5 months, and if you look at Vietnam, they were in there for 20 years. You look at Afghanistan, they were in there for many years. You look at any one of the wars, Korea, any one of them, they're in there for many years. We're in for 5 months, and we have obliterated their military capacity. Again, they've got some left, but soon they won't have some left. So I just want to thank everybody around this table. You've been very special. I want to thank a lot of the media people, because many of you have been very, very fair and that's one of the reasons you're here, frankly. But you've been very fair. You've covered me this time, I mean, much more fairly, I think, than the first term. The first term was a great success. We had the greatest economy in history in the first term, and this term is going to blow it away. I think this term is going to actually blow it away. So it's an honor to have you, and I'd like to ask our great Vice President, J.D. Vance, to say a few words, followed by Marco and Pete and Scott and Bobby Kennedy. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Please, J.D.
Well, great. Thanks, Mr. President. First of all, thanks for having us at this historical and beautiful place. And it's an honor to be on the team, an honor to be able to work on fraud, which is what I'm going to talk about today, though I know we have a lot of things going on. This has been an amazing team. from Kelly Loeffler at SBA to Doug at the VA to Todd and Bobby Kennedy, this really has required a whole of administration approach to try to tackle fraud. There are a few things that I want to talk about and celebrate. The first is that just since the beginning of the fraud task force that I started under the president's leadership and direction, we have identified $230 billion of fraud that's being perpetrated against the American people, and we have halted already $56 billion of that. It's sometimes hard, once the money has already gone out the door, it's hard to get it back, but stopping it from going out the door is how we save the American people. $56 billion, and of course we're going to keep on working on that. Just today, Mr. President, we will announce 17 new anti-fraud actions that will total about $1/3 billion, and that's added to the $230 billion that we've already uncovered. And I want to just talk for the benefit of the American people about why do we care so much about this? Because what I always try to remind people is that fraud has two victims. So to give one concrete example, there is a program that is administered by Medicaid, and that program ensures that low-income moms and low-income babies have access to neonatal care. Now, I think most Americans probably share my view that this is one of the great things about the United States of America, that if we see a baby and we see a young mother that requires help, we help our fellow Americans. That's a good thing. It's something that we should be proud of. And yet, there is a program that has defrauded the moms and the babies who benefit from these. You've gotten people who've gotten rich by setting up false companies that are providing false services. So who loses in that equation? Number one, of course, is the American taxpayer that is $230 billion poorer because of the fraud that this country has let go on. But I actually think most importantly is that we've seen that program run out of money. So we've seen moms and babies unable to access the health care that they need because the fraudsters have gotten rich. That is a disgrace. And until the president ordered us to stop it, no one was doing anything about it. So we've made a lot of progress, Mr. President, in just under a year. But we're going to keep on working at it because we believe the American people deserve to have their money spent as you and the Congress have directed.
There's big numbers you're finding, tremendous numbers. They look like Elliot Ness. Does anybody know? They look like that group of people you have lined up behind you. They're doing a great job.
Yes, sir.
Billions, think of not millions, billions of dollars is being recovered, billions. And you haven't seen anything yet. We have things happening that people aren't going to believe. The level of corruption and fraud that took place under the Biden administration is unprecedented. And Minnesota, California, Maine, believe it or not. You know, you think of Maine as this wonderful place.
Yep.
It's the level of corruption is incredible, all over. So, great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, please.
Oh, my turn. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing us out here. I got the chance to drive for the first time in a year and a half, which is the golf cart. It was fun. It was great. And so just a couple points that we all know. We've followed in the news, obviously, the events in the Middle East, and others here can talk about that. Not that they're not important, but there's some other issues happening around the world, Mr. President, that you've shown great leadership in that have not gotten nearly as much attention. I think they deserve to mention today. The first is the International Criminal Court is an illegitimate international organization that, frankly, illegitimate. They've made themselves illegitimate because they claim that even if you're not a member of that court, they can come after you. And what that literally means in the future is that American servicemen, political leaders, and others could find themselves under indictment by this International Criminal Court. If you want to know a little bit about it, Jack Smith used to work there. These are the people that think they can go out and basically indict any world leader and haul them into The Hague. So we tried to get them to reform and listen to us. They wouldn't do it. They're very arrogant. We've now begun an effort to really try to bring that court to heel.
By the way, there's no information that they're after me. It could happen. But just so you know, she's talking about it, I'm saying that means that maybe he's not trying to defend me. He is trying to defend Bibi and various other people. But there are many people that shouldn't be looked at that way. But there is no indication that I'm one of them. at this moment.
Well, and I actually think the people who are in biggest danger in our system are servicemen, people in uniform. That they'll try to go out for the rest of their lives, will not be able to travel anywhere in the world with their families because they can be arrested on one of these items. Imagine, you're a soldier, you fought in a war, and 20 years later they try to come grab you. So this is a big problem. So we've had dozens of countries already join us in this effort. Since we started 2 weeks ago, 5 countries have already quit the ICC and notified them that they're leaving, and we think there'll be more. The second thing is we had an unprecedented ministerial. 60 countries came to Washington, and we're a part of an effort where we were shedding light on far-left terrorism and violence. You know, the bomb goes off somewhere and it's tied to some right-wing group, or what I don't consider neo-Nazis right-wing, I consider them Nazis, right? But you're going to get a lot of attention on that. But if it's a leftist group, an Antifa group, that gets no coverage, or they ignore the ideological spin and the ideological reason behind it. So we've got 60 countries came up here and hopefully creating a strong coalition to go after far-left violent terrorism. Go after it and call it by name. I think we're building a very strong coalition there. We've had some successes in the Middle East, Mr. President, as you know, in the diplomatic front. The deal with Lebanon and Israel is unprecedented. President Ayoun was here a week ago. I think that was the first visit by a Lebanese president in over 30 some odd years. In fact, this is the first time the Israelis and the Lebanese government have spoken at the official level in close to 30 years. And that was thanks to your leadership. A lot of work to be done to keep that peace and build on it, but it's a real achievable. And of course, as you announced last night, Mr. President, this disarmament deal that you brought about with Steve and Jared's work on Hamas is another big step as well. It's something a lot of people thought would never happen. It needs to happen, but the fact they've even agreed to it is real achievable. Last point is on the Western Hemisphere. For the first time in 15, 20 years, the overwhelming majority of the countries in the Western Hemisphere are now led by pro-American leaders and pro-American governments. It's an extraordinary achievement, all of it happening through virtually every election that's happened in the Western Hemisphere since you were elected president has elected someone who is pro-American. And I think this is an incredible situation. And last but not least, and I have to thank a number of agencies here, particularly the Department of War, after that terrible earthquake in Venezuela. Within 36 hours, the full force of the American government was on the ground providing humanitarian assistance. It was a sight to behold. The USS Ford, I think, was in their port. Our Marines and armed service personnel were helping run their airport and their tower. It is one of the fastest, most dramatic, and most effective humanitarian responses, certainly in recent history, if not ever. And they came at the direction of the president. In fact, within an hour of that earthquake hitting, I remember because I was overseas, the president called and said, make sure we go in there and help these people recover from this. And we did. And thanks to your leadership, Mr. President. It's a great story. Enough needs to be told about it because the credit goes to so many agencies represented here today, but really the Department of War's effort was phenomenal. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. And just before we continue, I want to just congratulate Jay Clayton. He's with us today, as you know. He's had a big victory. He's going to do a fantastic job. He's only done his whole life has been about doing a fantastic job. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the invitation, the opportunity to be here. It's an honor for the War Department to help run this facility also, from the food to defense line. It's an honor to have you, and it's great Americans here and all around the country and all around the world who are the core of what keep us safe. But in order to do that, you have to have a leader that's willing to put them in a position to do it. And that's my takeaway, Mr. President, is sort of 3 points. 1, it takes courage. 2, it takes restoring a spirit, which you have done. And 3rd, it takes investment, and not just an investment, but a generational investment. And I think people miss that. The courage it takes to seal the border, to say we're going to do it, and we're going to do it every single day, and we're going to do it on behalf of the American people. The courage to bomb the Houthis and say we will maintain freedom of navigation. I wonder why they're not involved in this conflict, the Houthis, even though they're a proxy of Iran, because they felt the weight of American power for 45 days, and you had the courage to do that. The courage to do Midnight Hammer and conclude the 12-day war by obliterating their nuclear sites, something other presidents had the option on their table to do, but they never pulled the trigger because of the complications, because of the challenges, because of the risk. Courage. The courage to take on the cartels and drug boats, and now forming the ACCC, the America's Counter Cartel Coalition, with all those friendly governments that Marco talked about, who want to be shoulder to shoulder, not just with America, but with a bold, strong America with clear leadership. The courage to go get Maduro in the most dangerous, most heavily guarded house, inside the most heavily guarded fort, inside the most heavily guarded town in their capital city in the middle of the night, and change the entire dynamic of that country and that region. And the world saw what the American military was capable to do. But that doesn't happen unless the commander-in-chief says you're authorized to do it, and will take the handcuffs off when you do it to ensure that Americans come home. The courage to undertake epic fury and this Iranian regime and ensure they never have a nuclear weapon, which remains your commitment. And frankly, the courage to negotiate with people that have shown no willingness to do so honestly, with incredible negotiators who are the best in the world, and give them every opportunity to do it, give those things up peacefully. All of that takes guts. But that comes on the backs of a change in the spirit of our department. You talk about spirit all the time, and you're right to do so. When you rip out DEI, when you rip out social engineering and social justice, and you put in merit, and then you untie the hands of commanders to be commanders, to enforce discipline and accountability, to get back to basics, then you get historic re-enlistment inside our ranks. Our best people, Mr. President, are staying because they want to be in that kind of department. And then historic recruitment record amongst young Americans. Every month, our department breaks records. And when did that trend line start? On Election Day, 2024, when the American people said, I want to serve under this president. And that new name, the Department of War, has become the ethos, the warrior ethos of our department again.